Welcome to the Know Yourself Revolution podcast. My name is Grace Gravestock, and together we can positively impact 5 billion people by 2025, creating a tipping point for humanity through helping you know, love, and trust yourself. Today, my guest is Shelli Johnson, and her business is Piece of Me, and she's going to be sharing her amazing story of how she transformed trauma to triumph. Let me tell you a little bit more about her, and then I'll let you speak, Shelli, in just a minute. Shelli is a passionate healer and spiritual guide dedicated to helping people transform their lives through energy healing and personal growth. Her profound journey began when her mother crossed over, and that ignited a deep spiritual awakening. She, about 2.5 years into that journey, she took a significant leap of faith to become a spiritual wellness coach. As the call from the universe grew unbearably louder, and she knew that she could no longer ignore it. Since then, she's developed and launched several initiatives aimed at empowering the divine feminine and supporting personal healing. I'm so excited to have you on the show today. Thank you, Shelli, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely. So before we get into hearing your amazing story of triumph, Shelli, we're going to look at your chart. And if you're new to the show, then you'll know, or if you're not new to the show, you'll know that I like to start these interviews with a reading of your chart. And the reason for that is there's two reasons. One is I want you, if you're listening now, to realize that you have everything you need within you to be and do exactly what you're here to be and do. I want you to see that you're fully supported. And so we're going to look at Shelli's chart, and I'm going to point out some key highlights, things that make her particularly suited to be and do what she's here to be and do. And I actually haven't heard all of her stories, so it's going to be a real pleasure to hear more of the details. But Shelli, I know you and I are connected through my cousin, Tanya, who is such an important part of my life. And we grew up together, and she's been like a sister to me for so long, so many years. Here we are. I won't even say how long ago that was, but it's been a while. So I'm so grateful that she introduced us. And I want to tell you that I see in you an amazing person, and you're here to do some amazing work. So I'm going to tell you, let me pause for a second, just say, I'm wondering if there's anything you want to say before I jump into this.
No, I'm excited to see what you found in my chart.
Okay, awesome. Shelli, you are what we call an initiator. In traditional human design, you would be called a manifester. And so what that's based on is this white square at the bottom. It's in the sacral chakra. And what that means is that you are part of a small group of people. I'm going to say 9% of the population, 9% of humanity are configured like you are. And what does that mean? It means that one of your purposes, as far as correct work for you, is to start things. You're an initiator, you're a trailblazer. You're here to get the ball rolling and to begin things and then hand them over to the operations team, whoever that is or whatever that is in your life. But broadly speaking, that is your role in creating what I think of as the new world that we are choosing to create with our words, with our choices, with our actions, with our energy. And so your role in that is an initiator. And so you're here to start things that you feel led to start. And I know you're going to share with us more about what you are doing as it relates to the divine feminine. And that's such a timely topic for now, for where we are with humanity, with the tipping point, and what we're choosing to create is so significant and so important. So thank you again for being and doing what you're here to be and do. I'm going to say that the first thing that I look at is your type. And so we've talked a little bit about how you're meant to be an initiator. Part of what that means is to direct the energy of others. And so what is immediately apparent when I look at your chart is all the color. So first of all, when you have a lot of color in your chart, what we're looking at is your 9 energy centers, and the things that are colored in are what you're broadcasting. They're different types of information. And the things that are white, whether we're talking about the centers, like the big chunks, or we're talking about the lines, which each represent different energy patterns, what that is if you imagine yourself like a Wi-Fi signal, and you have a Bluetooth on, your Bluetooth is on, right? So what are you picking up with your Bluetooth? You're picking up all the things, all the energy patterns, the information that's represented by all the things that are white in your chart. So what that tells us, if we look at the big picture of these 9 energy centers, is we can see the plot outline for your life. We can literally see what you are here to master and the lessons that you're here to learn. Or another way to say it would be the things that you're here to become wise about through relationships. And I spent many years trying to figure out why we attract certain people into our lives. And so I'm going to give you the shortcut version, which is one of my superpowers. The shortcut answer to that is that we attract people into our lives, at least from a configuration perspective, based on they have what we don't have and we have what they don't have. And that's the reason why opposites attract, because there is this compelling energetic thing for us to want to be in relationship with people that are opposite of us. And there's a reason for that. And the reason is because it helps us to be and do what we're here to be and do. And it does the same for the other person. It's just a slightly different purpose. I know I talk really fast. I'm trying to slow down here. Deep breath. I get so excited about this. So all these things that are colored in your chart, because you have so much color, it means you're here to have a big impact. That's another thing it means. And your purpose is not just one thing, Shelli, but it's to be and do everything that you're here to be and do, which includes learning all these lessons through relationships, all these things that are represented by all that white in your chart, but also to have an impact and to contribute to the world consistently the things that are colored in. And each of these are energy patterns. So you can see why getting a reading might be valuable to go through multiple hours of hearing about yourself, because there's just so many different facets of who you are. But the point is for you, Shelli, is that you are here to have a big impact in the world. And we look at as an initiator, first of all, to start things. Second of all, I look at your public role, which is a problem solver and specialist. Another way to say that is you're here to be a visionary leader. And so you're here to have a very unconventional message. And there's a very seductive quality about you I say seductive, it's not necessarily sexual, because a lot of people associate that word with sexuality. It's not necessarily about sexuality. What it means is there's something compelling about you that makes people want to listen to what you have to say. And the message you have is unique and it's new. And so your message about transforming trauma to triumph is it's something that is relatively new, because most people feel like they've had a lot of trauma and therefore they're going to be victims. And so all the story they tell themselves is how they're victims. And so your message is about turning that trauma to triumph, or in my words, it would be taking it from being a victim to being a victor. And so that's very important that you're here to share this message. And the fact that you're on this stage sharing your truth is very much aligned with your chart. If we look at your throat chakra, which is the blue one around the throat area, you can see all the color that's coming out of it. So what does that mean? We see the connection between the throat and the mind, which means you're here to speak your mind. And we see the connection going all the way up into your inspiration center, which is the very top center. And that means that you're here to speak what you're inspired about. We also follow the color into the green triangle, or the green square that's turned sideways in the middle. That's your identity center. And so because that's connected to your throat, it means you're here to speak your truth. When we follow the color down, we also see it's connected, oh my gosh, to the yellow. So what does that mean? That's your intuition. You're here to speak your intuitive knowings, your intuition in the now, like what's present for you right now. And we see that also connecting, if we follow the color, all the way down to the orange square at the bottom. That is called the Divine Timing Center. So you're here to speak about the pressure that you feel, or the energy that you have to do the things that you're here to do. And so that orange square at the bottom is called the Divine Timing Center, which is a motor, and it gives you the energy to know when it's time to act, to move, because that actually gives you, it's part of your configuration that gives you energy, and you get a pulse. You might understand it as like the spark of the Holy Spirit giving you the push to do something when it's time. Depending on your way of looking at the world, you might just feel it in your body as energy, like, oh, I have the energy. It's time to clean out my garage, for instance. I've been putting it off for 2 months, but somehow today I suddenly feel the energy for it. So that's what I mean by a motor. Because it's a divine timing center, so it's time for that thing. And so that motor, that energy pushes you forward, gives you the energy to do the thing that you feel compelled to do. So I'm going to just pause and say, how does that resonate with you so far?
That resonates quite a bit, because with trying to live in my passion, I've not felt that I've really had one direction to move. And that makes sense that I'm an initiator and start something and then hand it off to other people. That completely makes sense. And with where I have my voice, where I have done my journey, is in self-care mostly. And that's what I'm speaking about right now in this part of my life. And that completely just makes sense to me.
I love it. And so one of the other piece or so much that I could say about your chart, but since you mentioned the self-care, I want to point you to these white sections. So these white sections, anything that's white in your chart, gives you an indication of what you're here to develop wisdom around. What do I mean by that? You're going to attract people that have the opposite of you, which is going to give you that borrowed energy. It's going to give you an experience with that energy. And you mentioned self-care. So there's also lessons in each of these open centers. That's usually where we get most of our lessons. So what's very unusual, one of the things that's very unusual about your chart is these two centers over to the right that are white. Notice there's no color at all attached to them. So what that means is you have this almost like a satellite dish that helps you pick up certain kinds of information. And the lesson around this one on the right, the far right, is about putting yourself first, learning to put yourself first. Because with this configuration, it means that you're an empath, and you and I share this. So we tend to put other people before us. We don't necessarily think about the cost to us of making somebody else happy, and we tend to just put our energy into helping somebody else and making sure they feel good, but it's usually at the expense of ourselves until we get to a certain point in our lives where usually it's pain. And I feel like you're going to talk about this when you tell your story, but it prompts us to learn this lesson, which is we have to put our own air mask on before we help other people. And that's when we start to take our power back. And when we take our power back and we stand in our power, it changes our frequency, it changes our energy, and it also affects everybody that we come in contact with. So the more that I stand in my power, the more it enables you to stand in your power, and vice versa. So my intention with this show is to help you, if you're listening, know, love, and trust yourself more. Why? Because when you raise your own frequency, you can affect everybody in a positive way around you. And similarly, when you have a lower frequency and you're in a victim state or whatever, you're also going to affect people around you. And that's not good or bad, right or wrong. It's just a different experience. So one of the beautiful things about being human, as far as I'm concerned, is we get to choose. We get to choose how we show up. We get to choose how we want to express all that we are. And there's always the highest expression, and there's the lowest, and everything in between. You mentioned self-care. So I want to highlight for our listeners that you are uniquely designed to become wise about that self-care, because that's about putting yourself first and learning to put your own air mask on first. The one on the right to the top left of that other white one, is about your value. And so it's similar. It's in the same vein. It's because it's about understanding that your value is not based on the money you make or the things that you do. Your value is just in your beingness. And so when you talk about self-care, that's often associated with the value that we have, the way we see ourselves or don't see ourselves, or the value that we allow for ourselves or don't allow. But that lesson for you in this life, Shelli, is about recognizing your own value and claiming it. How does that resonate with you?
That resonates perfectly. In the course that I created, I'm teaching these women to hold themselves in the highest of esteem, putting themselves first, not necessarily to not take care of others, but to take care of self first, that you have the energy to take care of others, because we do still need and want to do that for ourselves. But filling our cup up, and if we have 105%, we're giving that 5% to others.
Absolutely. Yeah, that self-care piece is so important. Gosh, there's a lot more that I feel like I want to say and I could share about the chart, but I think the most important thing to do right now is to give you a space and give you a platform to tell your story. So before we jump into that, I want to just highlight your grand purpose. So your grand purpose, the reason we call it your grand purpose is because it literally is the summary version of 4 energy patterns that make up 70% of what you're here to be and do. So there's words around it, and if we did a reading, we'd go into more details around it. But I'm going to give you the summary version because I feel like it's going to inform the stories that you're going to share. So I want to tell you that the summary version of your purpose, Shelli, besides all the other things that we talked about, and we didn't even get a chance to talking about how you're meant to make decisions and so many other things. But anyway, that your purpose is multifaceted, and it starts with you being an initiator and starting things. But here's what you're here to be and do at a summary level. You're here, Shelli, to offer guidance to others by recognizing the path where they will be able to tear it all down and do something new, opening them to transition and change, seeking continuity and looking at the past, the future, and the ever repeating patterns. That is literally the summary purpose of your life. And I feel like I know we're going to hear more about how that fits with the way that you are, the work you're doing, the purpose work you're doing. So I'm just going to pause and just say, is there I'm wondering, and I'm saying this intentionally in this way, and I want to, if you have an initiator in your life or you have an orchestrator, I want you to know that I'm asking Shelli open-ended questions because this is better for her to be able to express herself more in a more complete way when I ask her an open-ended questions. And Shelli, this is good for you to know as well, to inform the people in your life that it's best for you if you get open-ended questions, and it's going to force you into a box if I give you a yes or no question. So that's the reason why I'm saying I'm wondering about this, or please tell me about that, instead of asking you yes or no questions, which is what I would do for most people, because 70% of people have a different configuration and they respond really well to yes or no questions. But you are unique in that 30%, in that it's best to ask you open-ended. So my question to you is open-ended. It's just, how does that resonate with you so far, what I've shared?
Actually, it brings tears to my eyes because not knowing exactly where my direction has been in my purpose at this moment has been a little bit, I've fallen to because I'm doing so much self-care, I start falling into are you being lazy, or are you really needing this time out at the river? So it just makes sense, and it just feels so validating to be seen in this way.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah. And so what most people find when they get a reading is just that they get permission to be themselves. All the things that I'm telling you probably is nothing super new about it, but it's validating, right? It's not just you thinking, that you're making something up in your head about who you are, but knowing who you are at a configuration level and seeing like for people like me that need to be really logical, like I need to see it. I need to see the configuration and understand what it means, right? And then that gives me permission to realize that I'm not broken after all. I'm perfect the way I am. And so are you if you're listening. So if you're interested in getting a reading and finding out what you're hardwired for, kyr.life/reading is an easy place to do that. And I would be happy to share with you all this and so much more when we go do a deep dive into the reading. But I want to give you a chance to share now, Shelli, and I want to say one other quick thing about your public role. So I didn't talk much about it, but as a specialist, you're meant to be like a researcher, and you do a deep dive on all the things that you really care about, the things that really matter to you. And the function that plays in your role in terms of what you're here to be and do is you create a feeling of safety and security for people around you because of the depth of knowledge that you have, because you dive so deep, right? And you get into the details of it, and you're literally like an investigator. And that is what that one line energy is. So I'm just curious, how does that piece resonate with you?
It definitely resonates with me. I had a history of doing legal work, paralegal work, and I really enjoyed the research part of it. I didn't necessarily enjoy that line of work, but in this line of work, that's absolutely what I do. I research everything that I put out to anybody because I want to make sure, one, that I'm giving them correct information, but two, I want to condense it down to personalize the information for people as I'm speaking with them, give my little nuggets of things that I can see in things that they're going through, situations they're going through. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Beautiful.
And so all the things, so all this white in your chart is where you have these receiving dishes and basically a signal, like you could think of it as maybe you think of it as a Bluetooth, but anyway, you're getting all kinds of information. So I just want to point out that helps you help your clients. And then all this intuition, we didn't even get into all that, the different types of intuition that you have access to consistently. So you're definitely configured to help people see those patterns and to understand how they can transform in their lives going from trauma to triumph. So let's go ahead and jump into that story. So thank you again for being here. Thank you for being and doing what you're here to be and do. I'm so grateful that you do that, because the more you are fully expressed as Shelli, and all the ways, all the parts of your configuration that are able to shine, that gives all the people around you an ability it gives them permission to be themselves as well when you take that for yourself. So when you said the time at the river, do you need it? If it feels good to you and you can do it, you can fit it in, you can afford it, whatever it is, you really, at the end of the day, what human design teaches us is listen to our bodies. So at the end of the day, you want to tap into your body and find out. And if you're feeling like you're drained and you need that replenishment of nature, then you absolutely, there's nothing that you should be doing that's more important than that, because it's when you take care of you, that is the foundation for everything else, because it calibrates the frequency of what you're able to attract into your life, and it calibrates the frequency of who you attract into your life. And so all of that is based on intention. So anyway, there's a lot more we could say there. I want to make sure I give you time to tell your stories. Shelli, let's see. I know that you have had many challenges to overcome and that have brought you to your purpose work. You mentioned that you're no longer using numbing substances like drugs and alcohol, and breaking the cycle of abusive romantic relationships, as well as transcending issues with overeating and being overweight. These are all topics that a lot of our listeners have struggled with, or probably are still struggling with. So could you, and my point in asking you to share about them is to say, when we have challenges, that often leads us to understanding what our purpose work is. So
Yes.
It's, instead of it being a big challenge, it turns out to be the answer. So could you tell us more about your journey?
Yes, absolutely. As you said, I lost my mother in 2020, just before COVID and all of that going on in the world. And at that time, just after I lost her, I started realizing, because her health had been deteriorating, she was a avid smoker. So knowing that her health was so bad because of that, it made me start looking at my smoking. I was smoking cigarettes at that time, so I cut out smoking completely. But I started realizing that I didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't know where I was going in life, the place where I was in my life, the body I was in, the mindset I was in was completely foreign to me. It just felt like it wasn't even my life anymore. So I started diving into listening to motivational speakers and started working on getting my energy cleansed and getting more motivation in life, getting more confidence in life. That was one of the first things that occurred when I started my journey. Is one of my friends asked me why I had such low self-confidence. And I didn't realize until that point that I had so much more power over my life than I thought. I had all of these people in my life telling me who I should be and where I should go in my life, but I wasn't listening to myself. So I had created this life that was completely foreign to me. So I started doing the energy work and working on my chakra system. I was able to, some of the biggest challenges that I had to overcome was changing those negative mind loops from all of those things, all of the negative toxic relationships and romantic relationships that I had in my life. I had all those things going around, rolling around in my brain, and I couldn't seem to quiet the voices of the people around me. So I threw myself into meditation. I began working on all of the limiting mind sets, the limiting beliefs that I had accumulated throughout the years. So I started to figure out how to fall in love with myself. I threw myself into self-care. I did the meditation, affirmation work, gratitude work. I learned tapping. I became a Reiki master. I worked on getting the body out of fight or flight. I realized that my body was in a constant state of anxiety, which was contributing to the negative mind loops in my brain, the negative things that were going around in my head. So once I was able to get myself into a place of more balance and begin to see where it is that I wanted to take my life, like you said, I completely I don't want to say lost my life, but I completely started over. I decided who it was I wanted to be. And I started with just by deciding who it was that I was not. I decided one thing: I was not a liar. That was the only thing that I wanted to take with me at that point, because I didn't want to be limited to anything that anybody was telling me that I should be or who I should be. So I decided to go into my highest passions. Everything that I chose to do, I went within. Is this really something I want to do? Is this really where I want to go in my life? The steps that I wanted to take. And I started to build the confidence. And when in making those decisions on where I wanted to take my life, I built trust in myself, because I didn't have those. I felt like I couldn't make those decisions. I felt like people made those decisions around me. The victim mentality, of course. I still fall into that at times, different circumstances, different situations. But I created this program to help women fall in love with themselves, because that's how I did my journey. And it's been wonderful. I started a podcast as well. Healing Her Spirit. I launched that as well. It's been a beautiful journey. It's been terrible at the same time, because healing your trauma is not a fun thing to do necessarily, because you got to dive in deep sometimes. But it's also super beautiful, and there's so much, you just get so much satisfaction from being able to learn who you are and listen to yourself and give yourself permission to move in the way that you want to move, go where you want to go.
Absolutely. I love what you said about loving yourself. That's so important. I've met so many people that have told me that they actually hate themselves, or they have a lot of self-loathing. And there's a lot of trauma embedded with that. And so I'd love for you to tell us more about the ways that you were able to come to a place of acceptance and then love about who you really are, instead of those things that the opposite that a lot of people can relate to.
Like I said, when I realized that I had no confidence at all, I realized I had more power to be able to do where I wanted to go. With the self-care things, I found things that I like. So I was able to figure out I really enjoy poetry. So I started writing poetry again. I love to learn different languages. So I'm going to be learning different languages, and all of those things are going to take me into different places in my life, different versions of me in work or in my personal life, because I want to travel. So I'll be able to use my languages traveling and stuff. So I incorporate all of the self-care into things that I'm going to be doing in my future. And that helps me to fall in love with myself deeper every time I decide to do something new for myself.
I love that. Yeah, falling in love with yourself is a concept that some people might not realize how the significance of, but the importance of it. But when we love ourselves, we are able to hold a higher frequency, and that calibrates the frequency of who we can attract. When I say frequency, I know that might be new for some people, but if you think of yourself like a radio station or a Wi-Fi signal, you can imagine that you give out energy, you give out information, just like a radio tower does, or a Wi-Fi signal, and you also receive information. So what frequency is that? You could think of it like in the old days. I think you and I, Shelli, probably both grew up with a radio, right? You know what a radio is, and you can tune the dial. So all of those radio stations exist all at the same time, and the one that we're going to listen to is the one that we tune into. And so that frequency, it's literally called a frequency on a radio dial. If you're too young to remember radios, it is a thing, but it informs how I think about this. And so I'm just saying that. But knowing that we can raise our own frequency through self-love and really exploring who I really am and what do I really like. And so I like to start with the human design reading. That's just my lens, but there's so many other lenses to explore to really get to know yourself. And when you get to know yourself, you can start to realize how amazing you really are, and you can begin to love yourself, and that loving yourself opens up a lot of doors. So could you tell us, Shelli, about that process for you with how I know that some of that involves overcoming trauma, getting through trauma. And that's what a lot of our listeners are perhaps struggling with, is becoming more aware of the trauma that we've been through, whether it's sexual abuse that we're just now remembering. I'm thinking of family members now, or it's trauma in relationships that we've had in our conscious past. There's a lot of trauma that we all have stored in our bodies. And I know that one of your unique genius is helping people to transform that trauma and turn it into something better and different, something more, I'm going to say not better, that sounds like judgment, something that is more, it's transmuted. How can you talk a little bit about that how do you transmute trauma? How do you deal with trauma? How do you get rid of it, or whatever? How would you talk about that? Please, could you share?
Yeah. So the trauma is stored in the body. And that's one of the things that I dive into in the first course, the Embrace Your Goddess course, is doing those things for your body to get the trauma out. So going in and doing detoxes, doing yoga or exercises, grounding on a constant basis. Mother Gaia loves to transmute energy for us. She's there for us as much. We're there for her as much as she's there for us, for sure. So doing the things for your body, making sure that you're drinking enough water, making sure that you're getting enough rest. That is very important. We are, as divine feminine, conditioned, I would say, by society to be the nurturers, to be the mothers, to take care of everybody else first and putting ourselves last, like we had said before. In that, we see rest as being a bad thing or a lazy thing, and we need to not do that. I invite you to not feel that way, because we do need an even balance, like with work and everything. Decide what it is for your body, what works for your body, as far as doing the self-care practice, allowing time to go outside and ground, allowing yourself a certain period of time to do work, and finding your own balance. We're all different in so many ways. So learning about you helps to cultivate that self-trust, helps to build that self-love, and it helps to allow us to raise our bar on the way that we expect to be treated, not only by others, but also by ourselves. Making those promises to ourselves that you're going to do the things that you need to do. I'm going to drink this much water every day. I'm going to go on a walk. I'm going to do all of this and all of that. And so with the things that I've overcome as far as changing the mindset, doing the mindset work, we also, I forgot where I was going with that. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. So we were just talking about how do you transform the trauma, and you mentioned the grounding, you mentioned taking time to be with yourself and to really explore who you really are. I'm wondering if there's anything else you want to add to that.
Journaling too. You definitely do need to journal when you're going through your awakening process. Definitely keeping everything written down. It helps to get everything out. But working on the mindsets and also working on the body, you've got to do both. You can't do one at the same time. You should do them concurrently. That way you're making sure to get everything, get all that energy out of your body.
Okay, so when you say work on the body, you mean being physically active. It's important to be physically active.
Absolutely.
So you're going to do the journaling, you're going to do the affirmations, you're going to do the mindset work, you're going to be doing spending time with yourself, and you're going to be getting physical. You're going to use physical
Yes.
activity, exercise, outside time in nature, grounding, those kinds of things. Is that right?
Cleansing practice is also very important. I use my showering or bathing as a cleansing process. I make it a beautiful experience with candlelights and everything. And this is every day. Treat yourself like you're dating yourself. Fall in love with yourself completely. Cleansing practice to cleanse all of the negative energy off of you from the day. And I use a sud scrub brush to touch every piece of my body. I love every piece of my body because there's pain there. And when you're focusing your attention in that place on your body, you're showing that place love and you're allowing it to go away, to transmute it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. I want you to share about your energy guide. I want to share something really quick since you mentioned pain. I was at an event last weekend and I learned how to transmute physical pain. It was so amazing. It was so quick and easy. I couldn't believe it. I was thinking, why didn't I learn this years before? So I want to share it with you right now in case you're struggling with physical pain. So I just closed my eyes and I focused on the pain. So for me, I often have pain in my eyes or in my neck tightness or whatever it is. I want you to, if you're in pain right now, I want you to just close your eyes and focus on that pain and just feel it and just accept it and just say, what are you trying to tell me? And see what comes to you. See if your body's giving you a message. But what you want to do is just acknowledge it instead of stuffing it or hiding it. And so what I found is I would just close my eyes and I would take a deep breath and I would acknowledge that pain, and it was amazing how it just went away. And I want to just build on what you just said, Shelli, about how you touch every part of your body. You love your body. And so many people that I know, they hate their bodies and they don't. So if you hate something, how can it be serving you? You're setting up a conflict of interest there. So it's so much better if we can love our bodies. So thank you for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm wondering if there's anything else you want to say before we get into your free gift.
Sure. Yes. One more thing. I did want to talk about detoxing the body because there are a lot of environmental toxins in our realms. I want to say in our air, in our food, so detoxing the body is also very important. So when you're doing those things, the exercise and such, getting yourself to a state of actually sweating, getting the toxins out, drinking the water, flushing the toxins out, and then I always do, and I'm super duper adamant about this, ice baths or cold at the end of the shower or after a sauna or whatever. It helps to reset the fight or flight and getting the body out of the anxious state that it's stuck in. Because when you have trauma, your body can get stuck, different parts of your body, depending on, of course, how your body is designed, whatever. Getting all of that out, and yeah, the detox is very important to do.
Absolutely. Yeah, we think of detox physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, so many ways, right? And so that's a great transition into your free guide. Shelli, if you could tell us more about what we're going to find in the 5 ways to cleanse and balance your energy free guide.
Absolutely. So the 5 ways to cleanse and balance your energy, I give you a plethora of tools that you can use to help do your cleansing practice. My suggestion is always doing like a cord cutting ceremony or some kind of ritual in the evening where you're allowing yourself to cut the cords from any energies, situations, people, or events of the day, allowing that energy to be cleansed, transmuted, and sent back to sender with love and light. In the morning, starting off with a gratitude practice and get your day started as motivational and such. That is what you'll find in there, a bunch of tools and a bunch of different tips and tricks to help you along in your process. Because when you're dealing with clearing out that mind clutter, knowing what energy is yours and what energy you've picked up from other people is very important. Because when you're working with your own energy, when you feel your own energy, when you feel that this limiting mindset is something that has been stuck in your aura, your energy field for a long time, it can take a minute to get that out of there. So working on getting the gratitude practice and all of that, it's very instrumental in your process.
I love it. I couldn't agree more. Yeah, and since you're talking about a gratitude practice, I'm just going to make mine. I'll put mine on the screen real quick. So it's free. You can get it at activateyourlifepurpose.com. And what it is a daily gratitude practice, and it's not just to help you get into it's not just to get into the space of gratitude, but it's also a way to intentionally create what you want. So I wanted to share with
Yes.
you that the opportunity, and maybe you could come in and be a guest speaker on we have a daily event. I'm going to put that, it's also free. It's called Alignment 365 Results Club. And what that is about keeping your energy in alignment by using gratitude on a daily basis. It's a 15-minute Zoom call. It's free while it's in beta phase right now. So kyr.life/A365. And I would like to invite you, Shelli, to join us one of these days and share a little bit of what you do with our people there. We have a beautiful community. We meet every single weekday for 15 minutes, and then there's an optional 15 minutes if people want to stay and share. We find that people are able to create with words amazing things in their life. And so that's a really opportunity for all of us to stand in our power and use our words to create what we want, not what we don't. So when you mentioned the gratitude practice, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that helps us raise our frequency, and it
Mhm.
also helps us get into a state from which we can create more and faster and better.
Receiving mode, getting, yeah, divine feminine, where we need to get in receiving mode. We're conditioned to give, not receive.
That's right. Yeah, we are conditioned to give, and it's time for us to be ready to receive. And so that starts with awareness and setting aside time every day to have a practice, a gratitude practice. If you are interested in that, I'm going to put that up underneath to activate your life purpose. Again, it's free. It's an 8-minute video. It's my take on how to get into that state of mind and how to intentionally create what you want using gratitude as a starting point. Thank you for bringing that up, Shelli. I feel like it's so well aligned with what you're doing and the work that you're doing to transform trauma into triumph for so many people. I'm wondering if there's anything else that you want to say about the kind of person that's going to get the most value from working with you, and then maybe you can talk about what does that look like.
The person that's going to get the most value from me is going to be the person that is tired of everybody else telling them what to do, not necessarily tired of them not of them telling you what to do, but necessarily listening to them, not necessarily listening to them. So she's going to probably be a single mom, or have been for a good part of her life, maybe struggle with finances. All of the tips and tricks that I give are cost effective. She's going to be maybe stuck in some of her addictions, maybe drugs, drinking, overeating. I found with my journey, those things just organically fell away as I found that they were not good for me and they were causing more harm than good. So those will go away eventually. Somebody that's stuck in cycles of toxic relationships with romantic partners, someone that's had childhood trauma, someone that's just looking to change the programming in her head and get into the receiving mode. That's who I want to help.
That's fantastic. I love that you have such clarity around who you can help. And I believe that is informed by your own personal life experiences. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
You're here as a role model. You've been there, done that, and you're willing to help other people find shortcuts to get there. So I love that. Thank you for that. What does working with you look like, Shelli? If somebody is interested and they download your free guide, they're going to learn more about you and your philosophy, and they're going to get something practical and immediately useful about spiritual hygiene. It sounds like to cleanse and balance their energy. Be sure to get that if this resonates with you, kyr.life/Shelli. That's SHELI if you're listening and you're not watching right this minute. Shelli, what does it look like to work with you? What do you offer to this person that you've just described? What does it look like to work with you, and what kind of results can they expect to get?
So I have created a 7-step series, the first of which is the Embrace Your Goddess course. So working with me, you will start with the Embrace Your Goddess course. Once you're completed with that, which is a 2-week course, we would have a Zoom call so that I could make sure that you're in a safe place to be able to continue your journey, because there being that I'm working with the divine feminine that has been in toxic relationships, I want to make sure that you're safe, your person is safe. I also want to make sure that you understand the importance of the self care portion of it, because as the things fall away, because you're asking for to call in a new life, and as the things fall away, they can hurt, because those are things that have been in your life for quite some time. So holding yourself in love, light, compassion, and non-judgment is where we want to get you to. So once you're to that point, we can move you on to the second step. And the second step, we're going to look at beginning to know who you are down to the core, start taking steps to build the new version of yourself. And within that, both of those courses, we have a community built so that we can keep in touch with, if you have any questions or if you have answers for other people within the community. So there's a beautiful community there for you to jump in and give your 2 cents or learn something new from others. And then, of course, also my podcast too. You can always take a look there. And with my podcast, I have my story, different anecdotes, and different tips and tricks, different lessons that I've learned. So it's going to be fun.
And where can people find you on your podcast, Shelli?
My podcast is I have it on Spotify, but I also have it downloaded in, I can give you the link as well. Actually, I think I did give you the link as well. So my first episode is on there.
Okay,
Spotify,
we'll put.
other than that.
Okay, and it's under your name, Shelli Johnson?
It
Okay.
is called Healing Her Spirit with Shelli.
Healing Her Spirit with Shelli. Okay, and that's SHELI.
That's
Healing
correct.
Her Spirit with Shelli. Okay, and we'll put the link in the show notes as well. So thank you, Shelli. That's amazing. I love that you're doing this work and that it's informed from your own personal experience. So again, I want to remind you, if you're listening and you're wondering, why did I have to go through this thing or this trauma or this unhealthy relationship? It's possible that all of those things are part of your soul's curriculum to push you towards becoming wise about certain things, as you could see in Shelli's chart. And maybe it's pushing you to sharing your mess as your message. I heard that a long time ago, and it struck me as odd at the time, but I've heard it so much since then, and it makes so much more sense. So whatever your mess is, maybe that's your message, and maybe you're here to help others overcome that thing that you've already overcome. Maybe you're here to give them a shortcut, or maybe you're here to make it easier for. And what if we were all just being and doing what we're here to be and do? What the world would look like, right? What an amazing place it would be when we're living in cooperation and collaboration instead of competition. So that's part of what the Know Yourself Revolution is all about, is creating that world that we want to live in, creating that world that we choose to participate in. And we vote on that every single day with our time, with our resources, with our energy. We vote. And so keep that in mind. And thank you for leading by example, Shelli. This is amazing. I'm wondering if there's anything else that you want to say to anybody who might be curious about working with you, or who might be skeptical about some of the results that are likely from working with you. What could you say to them?
I am proof in the pudding. I could tell you I would have never been on camera a couple of years ago, for sure. Absolutely. My journey is definitely can show you where you can go, because I started out pretty low. I was pretty hooked on drugs and drinking. My drinking journey got very low at points. But I did want to tell your audience, because you did say talk about acceptance. That's very important to remember. You are always exactly where you're supposed to be. So don't be hard on yourself. If you think you're supposed to be farther along, you're not. You're exactly where you're supposed to be. And God wouldn't put you in a place that is going to be harmful to you. God is going to put you in places where you're going to learn something. So being aware of what it is that being aware of the things that are going on in your brain and in your body while you're going through the journey is definitely, be aware. Take care of those things as they come up.
That's so important. And Shelli, I know you have an app. How could people find more information about the app?
Yes, thank you. It's called Awesome Healing Strategy. And the app you can download on either Google or Apple. Once you get into the program, you'll see a couple mini courses in there. And then you'll see also, once you get into it, the Embrace Your Goddess course, and then my second course, Inner Alchemy. Those are the program is designed as awesome. So the acronym awesome. A is for affection, which is the Embrace Your Goddess course. W is for who are you, and then so on and so forth. So there's a 7-step series within that app that you download. Awesome Healing Strategy.
Awesome Healing Strategies. So you can get that in the Play Store or the Apple Store, whatever you kind of device you have. And you can get in touch with Shelli through this free guide, 5 ways to cleanse and balance your energy. If this resonates with you and you're interested in learning more about Shelli and her work and what's possible for you in this new life that you're here to create, I just have to read this one more time. It's just so pertinent. So Shelli, again, you're the summary version of your life. This is your grand purpose, by the way. And if you're curious about your own grand purpose, you can get yours there. But yours, Shelli, I just want to say it again. It's so perfect to what you just said. You're here to offer guidance to others by recognizing the path where they will be able to tear it all down and do something new, opening them to transition and change, seeking continuity and looking at the past, the future, and the ever repeating patterns. So that self-love that you promote and that self-reflection is going to totally do all of those things and really help people to tear down the trauma in their life and transform it into something so much more high frequency triumph instead of trauma, right?
Yep. No more victim. We are victors.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think that's a great place to end. So thank you again for being on the show, Shelli. We are no longer victims. We are victors. We choose that with our words, and then we choose actions that support those words. So if you're interested in working with Shelli, be sure to get her download, kyr.life/Shelli. And if you're interested in joining our Alignment 365 Results Club, again, it's a daily 15-minute Zoom call at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time for just 15 minutes, but it's accountability for your gratitude practice. So you can get more information at kyr.life/A365. And we'd love to see you there. We'd love to see you intentionally create whatever is in your heart to create, because that is the whole vision of the Know Yourself Revolution. We get to choose. We get to choose how we show up. We get to choose what we live into. We get to choose what we want to create with our time and our energy and our limited amount of time on this earth. So let's use it wisely.
Perfect.